FM Rainbow.
Good evening, Goa, and welcome to 105.4 FM Rainbow. My name is Velma, and you are tuned into a very, very special evening today. Not just because it's a Palm Sunday, but also because it is a very special day as the world celebrates World Autism Awareness Day. And keeping that in mind, FM Rainbow Goa too celebrates World Autism Awareness Day. And we have with us here in the studio Velho, an autism interventionist and head of the autism program at Sethu, a charitable trust in Goa that provides services in child development and family guidance. Welcome to the studio, Andre.
Thanks for having me, Velma. It's such a pleasure to be here, smiling from year to year.
And how does it feel to be here in the FM studio? You've come for the first time, right? Though you live close by.
It is my first time to the studio. Yeah, it feels great. I'm nervous because I hope to do Sethu and all the families that I work with proud.
Yes, you will. You definitely will. And if you can tell us, why is World Autism Awareness Day important?
Sure. So the UN General Assembly declared 2nd April as World Autism Awareness Day to bring light to how important it is to work together to support autistic people, to help improve their quality of life, and to kind of come together to include them in our communities. But let me tell you why it's important to me.
Yeah, sure.
Autism is still viewed as a neurological defect, and this view is harmful for many reasons. But today, let me just try to stick to how having this kind of view affects communication and communicating with them.
Okay.
When we think of communication, right, we often have preconceived notions about the so-called proper or correct ways of communicating. You know, how we can or cannot frame sentences, what words we may use or may not use in sentences. And anyone who deviates from these so-called acceptable ways of communicating are often marginalized, and they're made to conform to the socially acceptable ways of communicating.
Okay.
And when there is a miscommunication then between a person who has autism and who doesn't, the blame often falls on autistic people.
Okay.
And say, for example, we try to communicate with them. Say we say hello. And we see that they don't react, at least externally, in the way that we would react if a person said hello to us.
Okay.
Then we would conclude that something is wrong with them.
Yeah.
But if you really think about it, there's no right way of communicating. Now, some ways of communicating are more common than others, but that doesn't make it superior or better. So say you take two people, one person who speaks Portuguese and the other person who speaks Hindi.
Okay.
They will struggle to communicate with each other, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And in India, most people obviously speak Hindi.
Yes,
But that doesn't
yes.
make Hindi speakers more correct or better or superior than Portuguese speakers. Portuguese isn't worse, it's just different.
Yes.
So if a person speaking Portuguese can't understand the person who's speaking Hindi, is it their fault? No. Just because two people speak different languages, it doesn't mean that either of them have a language problem, and nothing's wrong with any one of them. So it's completely unfair to autistic people for us to view their communication differences as problems or defects.
Okay.
Which brings me to my point about why World Autism Awareness Day and month is so important. Because two-sided miscommunication between autistic people and neurotypical people leads to negative experiences. And as a result, what autistic people tend to do to avoid further problems is they just avoid social interactions with neurotypicals. And we leave them out because it's just easier. And this robs them of the chance to make friends, which further isolates them. So we are equally to blame for this. So I personally feel, however, that we should not put a blame on anyone. It's no one's fault. No one is wrong. Our ways of communicating are just different. But if we look at these differences as a mutual problem, then there's less likely to be any blame. Because people who share a problem share the responsibility for solving it. And this means that the responsibility is not solely on autistic people to learn our ways of communicating. We also have a lot to play. We need to take the initiative to find out ways in which autistic people communicate and try to communicate and meet them halfway.
True.
Okay, so that's why World Autism Awareness Day is so important for me, because we have a huge role to play in impacting how autistic people are included in our communities, and not just putting the onus on them, but also sharing the responsibility to see what we can do on our part.
Okay,
to help
okay.
make life easier for them.
And now, Andre, if you could tell us, I mean, all these years we've had the symbol of autism. It was a puzzle,
Correct.
right? Am I right?
Correct.
Okay, and now it is switched over to a rainbow infinity symbol.
Correct.
So if you could tell us a bit about the switch, why the switch?
Sure. So I had to do a bit of research on this, and it was quite interesting what I found. So over time, our understanding and perceptions of autism and autistic people has evolved for the better and for the truer.
Okay.
And in the process of that evolution, the visual symbols that represent autism have also changed. And the key driver for this change, in fact, has been the voices of autistic people and their families and their supporters. And they are now more and more driving the conversation and the design. It's made all the difference. As far as I know, back in the 1960s, the first symbol that was designed, in fact, by a parent, was a puzzle piece, but framing autism as a puzzling condition. But a puzzle piece has negative connotations. It kind of symbolizes imperfection or incompletion, uncertainty, the state of being unsolved, and most importantly, the being missing.
Okay.
Now, then in the early 2000s, autism awareness became like a top priority for all the newly formed autistic communities, and as such, they needed colors to fly their flag and to grab attention.
Okay.
And for better or worse, many gravitated towards the color blue because
Yes.
of its connotations with calmness and acceptance.
Yes, I think that's what it is now, is it?
No. So blue, in fact, was even when blue was selected as the color to represent autism, autism was considered a male-only condition.
Okay.
An idea which has since been proven wrong and in many ways damaging for the female representation on the spectrum.
Okay.
So there's a shift now from, we talked about the problems of using a puzzle piece to represent, and now problems with using blue because many women on the autism spectrum don't get represented.
Okay.
So currently there's no exactly one symbol that represents autism, but the newest and the most widely used symbol currently that has been created with the help of neurodiversity advocates, that can be used at any time in any place, is a gold or a rainbow infinity symbol. And it was creating using different perspective than the previous symbols to raise awareness all year round.
Okay.
And the use of this rainbow spectrum in the infinity symbol was designed to drive awareness of the diversity among neurodivergent individuals. Because, see, at the end of the day, different families living with autism will have a symbol that resonates with them.
True.
And the autistic person in their life.
Yeah.
The main goal of having a symbol is so that autistic people are better understood and so that they have the opportunity to enjoy full lives in a welcoming society.
Basically, to communicate with others.
Correct. So we have an opportunity to say hello to them and for them to say hello back to us in their own way.
Dear listeners, everywhere are people. Many a times, autistic people are all around us, and everywhere we may be studying with them, working with them. They may be part of our family, our friend circle, or there may be a friend or a friend's friend who may be knowing some children who are autistic. And to shed some light upon this as we celebrate World Autism Awareness Day here today on 105.4 FM Rainbow, we have with us here in the studio Andre Velho, an autism intervention therapist at Sethu, Saligaon. And Andre, moving ahead, if you could tell our listeners what exactly is autism, why is it called a spectrum disorder? And in the meantime, listeners, as he answers the question, I would like to remind you that you can ask any of the questions. If you have any questions on autism, you're free to text or call us. Okay, you can text us on 838-007-1054. You can text us on this number. I can even call you and we can have a live chat, absolutely live here on air. Okay. So, Andre, if you could tell us what exactly is autism and why is it called a spectrum disorder?
Sure, would love to. So, simply put, autism is a brain difference, not defect, a difference that exists in some people. And what that means is that autism is an important part of who they are and the way they are in the world. So, autistic people develop differently to non-autistic people.
Okay.
They may think, move, interact, sense and process differently to what we might expect. They also have more qualities and characteristics in common with other autistic people than they do with other non-autistic people. But each person is different. And autistic people will be different to non-autistic people in the way that they socialize and communicate, including the way they connect with other people, the way that they make and understand friendships and relationships, in the way they use speech and language and body language too. They're also different in the way they think and process. So in the way that they imagine and they play, in the way that they experience the world, in the way that they express emotions, and in the way their brains develop. So, and the reason why it's called a spectrum disorder is precisely because of that. It's because it's every autistic person is so different, and it's to help us understand exactly that. It's a spectrum.
So no two are the same. That's what you mean to say. Okay. Friends and friend support is what autistic people need, right, Goa? What do you think, right? And hence, it's always good to know what exactly causes autism. Andre, if you could tell us what causes autism and is autism curable?
Yeah, great question. There's a lot we don't know about how autism occurs in people. But what we do know is that there's no one cause of autism. The latest research that I've done shows that autism develops from a combination of genetic and environmental influences. So genes as well as the child and family environment seem to increase the risk that a person might develop autism. But it's important to keep in mind that increased risk is not the same as cause. Okay, so for example, some of the gene changes that are associated with autism can also be found in non-autistic people. And similarly, not everyone exposed to an environmental risk factor for autism will go on to develop autism. In fact, most will not. But I think it's important for us, more than what causes, to understand what does not cause autism, because there's lots of myths around that. First of all, bad parenting, doesn't cause autism. Lack of exposure to other children does not cause autism. Vaccines does not. Watching a lot of TV does not. There's some research being done about TV watching, but it's also in the same way. It's extremely unlikely that any diet, tablet, any particular kind of therapy will completely remove a person's autism. It's important that we accept children and people, autistic people, for who they are. With their autism and everything. No human being is perfect, but I think it is our ability to love and live with our imperfections that makes us human.
Okay, and thank you, Andre. And we have Elena, one of our listeners, Elena from Amargaon. Andre, she has a question for you.
Sure, would love to answer.
Yeah. She says, hi, Andre, do you use ABA techniques while working with kids with autism? Yep. Also, how well aware are people about autism, and is it still a taboo in Goa?
Great questions. I'll take the second one first. Yes, it is still a taboo, and at Sethu we try to do our best to remove the stigma that's associated with autism. And we find we're very lucky to be working in Goa, in a community where everyone's so close knit to each other, and I feel it's quite easy for us to reach out and spread awareness of autism in the community. Coming back to Elena's first question, yes, well, we're not AB. We don't have any ABA certified therapists at Sethu. But we do use some of the positive aspects of ABA. There's a controversy around ABA used in its entirety, because it's not really a naturalistic intervention. It's quite expensive. It requires highly trained specialists. What we try to do at Sethu is work with families. So we don't take, as clinicians, we don't take the onus on being the drivers of change in kids. We want families to have that privilege and that opportunity. And ABA doesn't really, at least from what I know, doesn't really allow for that. So while we do use some of the techniques from ABA, but we've taken the best parts of ABA and combined them with some of the other programs and strategies, and that's what we do at Sethu.
You spoke about a lot of the challenges that people with autism face. Now, if you could tell us something about their strengths, can you do that for us?
Sure, I would love to. So something unique that autistic people have is the ability to hyperfocus on things that are interesting and motivating to them. And as a result of that, you can often find autistic people who have, specialist knowledge in topics of their interest. I know people who know the bus routes of an entire city, for example, they may be specialists in history, in the about world wars, perhaps. So they may have exceptional memory also for facts and figures. They have the ability to carry out tasks with a high degree of accuracy and excellent attention to detail. They could have exceptional skills in creative art, such as art and music. They have a tendency to be really honest and not judgmental. They have a unique sense of humor. They have a strong sense of loyalty in their relationships and friendships. They have the ability to see the world from a different perspective, and I think as a result can bring a different insight into whatever work that is that they're doing. Their ability to think outside the box, something that us neurotypicals perhaps would not be able to bring. So I've been privileged to work with so many kids and families, and it's not all autistic people. It's a myth that all autistic people have some savant level or genius skills, but they all bring something to the table that I think we can value and appreciate, and
talk about valuing that. I think people, even the parents, if you checked out our Facebook page, I don't know whether you had the time to do so, Andre.
I have to hold my hand on my heart and say, no, I haven't.
So there is, at least the last when I checked it out, there is one parent who has already thanked you. The son and the parents have already thanked you. Yeah, there's a little thank you note there.
I'm so appreciative of that.
In the comment section.
My pleasure.
So they're so grateful to you. And there are a couple of questions that have just popped up now. This always happens, towards the end of any show, we get a lot of messages and texts. And there are a few questions. I think we could do that after this song.
Sure.
And besides being an autism intervention therapist at Sethu, I must tell you that listeners that Andre Velho is a great musician too. And
I wouldn't say I'm a great musician, but thank you for saying that.
But if you worked with a Goan musician, you worked for Christian Bent, right?
Yes, we played. We had a few years together when we used to play quite regularly.
Okay, and which instrument was that you played?
Guitar, and I used to sing with him too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's a number that we have picked up for you. This one done by Christian Bent. What have you played in this song?
The piano and the guitar.
Okay, My Heart, My Motherland. The Campfire Stories released in the year 2017 by the song by Christian Bent, and on the background vocals is our very own guest who's here in front of me in the studio, Andre Velho, and he's also played the guitar and the piano on that number. My Heart, My Motherland is the name of the song. And one quick question, Andre, before we say bye-bye to you. So what sort of a support can the audience or people show to others, to the ones with autism?
Great question. I think it starts with education. So, awareness. I think it's having awareness starts with each of us taking the responsibility for ourselves. We need to do our part to understand more about what autism is and what it isn't, and what we can do to interact more effectively with autistic people. We need to keep an open mind and focus on everything that autistic people can do, rather than only what they struggle with. And once we have a better understanding of autism, we can help others to do the same. We can attend local events and get actively involved in supporting autism awareness activities in Goa. We can be advocates, so we can stand up for kids and adults with autism, making sure we don't let anyone talk down to them or talk negatively about them. If we can speak up, whether, we can write or call our, local legislators or other leaders regarding, legislation that affects autistic people and their families, and, just be a positive role model, paying attention to our own actions and our own words when it comes to autism, setting a good example, for our friends, families, our kids, when interacting with autistic people, helping those with autism to thrive, do our best to make sure that they feel accepted and included in our lives.
Okay, so that's about it, listeners. Yes, there is actually another question. If there's time, they say there's someone here who wants to know what sort of methods are used at Sethu. She says, Andre, may I know how do they help children who are non-verbal communicate? What methods do they use at Sethu? But we're kind of running out of time. And
I'll quickly say to that
Yes.
is we use a bunch of different evidence-based programs and interventions at Sethu. And I would love to connect with the
that's Elena,
with
actually,
Elena Moore.
again from Margao.
Maybe you could share
yes,
the contact number.
Yes,
and
I'll do that. If, you can always, anyone who has more questions or would like to personally meet Andre Velho, you can always get in touch with him. He is an autism intervention therapist at Sethu in Saligaon, and the contact number of Sethu there is 7720013749. I'll say that again, 7720013749, or you can also visit their website, that is sethu.in, sethu.in. That's right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Velma. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Hopefully I get a chance to be back again sometime.
Definitely. I had a good time too.
Me too.
For exactly an hour and a few more minutes, I
Thanks.
should
You
say.
played some great music and right down my alley.
And I'm